Guess what? I'm done.
Oh, I was going to put a jacket on for this one, wasn't I? Hi, I'm James Gordon.
And I'm Rebecca Dahl.
Welcome to VMAP. Out of the mailbox.
From the mailbox. In the episode where we were talking about abuse, can you actually be in a marriage and be involved in power exchange?
Sure. I'm in a marriage, and I don't have power exchange with my spouse, but I do with one of my other partners. But I know many married couples who are involved in MS. To some, the marriage is a relationship outside of the MS. To others, it's very much subordinate to the MS. It's some papers that they sign to get certain benefits in daily life. It's really all a matter of how you look at it. And the approaches are as different as people's different and varied relationships.
Yeah, and I'm not married to him. I am actually coming out of a divorce. I am in a...
I thought you were married to the mom.
Don't make me hurt you, sir.
You keep saying that.
I'm coming out of a divorce. My ex-husband and I did actually try to incorporate power exchange at one point. And that worked well for a little while. Ultimately, it wasn't really what our relationship needed. But it was something that we did for a while, and it's something that a lot of married couples will actually introduce into their marriage, sometimes just to spice things up. Sometimes because they actually need to really define the roles of who has what responsibility. So, yeah, it certainly can work, and I see it throughout the community. It's not uncommon for people to be both married and involved in a power exchange with their spouse.
Okay. We certainly never meant to imply that it was an either-or situation. Hopefully our directional mic is mostly not picking up the road noise.
Here's our version of the pyramid, and a very noisy motorcycle outside. Asshat alert, cars outside.
Our next episode is going to begin to talk about the relationship between BDSM and Power Exchange. We've said in a previous episode, and we'll say it again here, that in narrowest definition, not everyone involved in Power Exchange is involved in BDSM. That said, there's a non-random relationship, unlike, say, ballroom dance enthusiasts who also happen to watch sci-fi. BDSM doesn't define all power exchange, but there is a connection.
Some elements of the connection may seem obvious. From a whip in the hands of a Roman master to a birch rod in the hands of a Victorian husband, the right to use physical coercion was often a prerogative when one person had whole or partial control of another. So, of course, force suggests control. Chains and collars may have the same symbolism.
The classic easy interpretation is that not everyone wants to be free. In fact, choice can be scary and intimidating. In our first episode, we discussed how offering everyone the chance to be in charge of their own relationship could be frustrating for some people who prefer to be followers.
That explains the power exchange relationships that don't involve any sadomasochism and are only about control. It might explain a whip as a symbol for power exchange. It might explain a symbolic blow or cuffs. It doesn't explain a need for serious pain, restraint, or humiliation that is not uncommon in the world of power exchange.
In fact, the modern world has sought to stamp out relationship models that involve pain and coercion. Why do they still exist at all outside of dictatorships and criminal human trafficking? Why would free people consensually enter a relationship that may involve real whips and chains?
We know some things that aren't the reason. For example, we know it's not a cultural tradition.
Despite some tall tales about ancient European houses back when the internet was young, which would put Baron Munchausen to shame, nobody practicing power exchange has a history of it that goes back much further than the late 1940s, outside of stories and books. Modern power exchange isn't some remnant of an older culture straggling into the modern world, like traditional mummers in an English rural village. It didn't just happen to endure into the 21st century. People purposely created it.
We know it's not recreation either. While some practitioners incorporate Victorian or 1950s household elements into their dynamics, unlike, say, a folk dancing group at a university, modern power exchange isn't primarily an attempt at preserving a historical tradition for the sake of recreation alone. And while recreation might explain a stage flogging scene, it doesn't explain a scene that leaves deep bruises.
We want to be clear. Not everyone involved in power exchange has sadomasochistic or counterintuitive needs outside of the desire to control or be controlled by another. That's important to bear in mind. You can't assume that anyone interested in power exchange is also interested in other aspects of BDSM.
To build modern power exchange, practitioners specifically sought out historical or fictional models because they included strong elements of dominance or submission and coercive physical force. Power exchange isn't sometimes called erotic slavery because it's descended from actual slavery. It's called that because Victorians and 20th century people wanted a relationship that involved whips and chains, and actively looked for historical examples to provide a model.
That means we invented MS, DS, and all the other things to fill a need, and we chose historical models that very loosely seemed iconic of the things we wanted. Control, confinement, pain. All the names, all the terms, all the traditions were created out of fantasy or distant historical echoes, because modern people actually need them.
Why would anybody do that? Why would free people fetishize being unfree? Even if we accept that in most cases the modern relationship is far less brutal than any historical icons it references, why would anyone want anything to do with a lifestyle that invoked pain, restraint, or humiliation?
Because so many people make assumptions that the two things are identical, we want to investigate the overlap, because we think it highlights a lot of the ways that power exchange can work well, or go very wrong.
That's the mystery we'll delve deeper into in our next episode. Cars, 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 cars. All the cars. Screwed that up. And there's a car anyway. Alright, cars. It's this line again.
We've said there's no right way to do power exchange. There are, in fact, a lot of wrong ways to do power exchange. Anything that's non-consensual, and we'll talk about consensual non-consent later.
Everyone's version of power exchange can look as different and unique as any individual relationship possibly can. But the idea behind power exchange is that there actually is an exchange. If there's no real exchange going on, if somebody is just taking advantage of another person, that's pretty much the wrong way to do it. I think that basically sums it up. It's wrong if it's abusive. If there is a secret power exchange, you will never know.
And really, most of these things need to be discussed in all relationships. It's just that often they aren't. Power exchange gives the top partner the authority to make a discussion happen. If it doesn't, and needs don't get met.
Ice cream, ice cream.
The lights, they're too painful. For VMAP, I'm James Gordon.
And I'm Rebecca Dahl.
Remember, there's no right way to do power exchange.
Only your way. Hello again, helicopter. You're making so much noise. What the hell? We tend to be resistant to that because it sounds like putting people into... I screwed that up. Ugh.
It's a complicated mouthful.
Blah. Why do I get all the names? Bleh. But I need a hug.
You need a hug? What do you mean I need a hug?
I want a candy bar.
I'm sorry. You may have to do that. Hey, yawned.
You wrote the script.
I tried to stifle it. I'm not a camera.
I'm getting a show over here. That cannot go on the outtakes.
We're doomed. We're doomed.
And, asshat alert, when your partner wants you to become friends with their friends and ditch your old friends, that's may suck.
It is done.
I don't know about that.